Long ago, when rivers still spoke and the moon listened, two sisters lived in a village. One loved with a pure heart, the other with pure jealousy for her sister. On the night jealousy outweighed love, the river witnessed a secret meant to stay buried forever. This is the tale of the wicked stepsister. If you enjoy African folk tales filled with mystery, betrayal, and justice, subscribe, like and comment where you are watching from and journey with us, so you never miss a story the ancestors still remember. Now, let the river speak. The village of Uzoma lay peacefully beside the wide body of River Olumo. Where the water moved slowly, as if it was thinking, tall palm trees leaned toward the river, their shadows dancing on the surface. Mud houses with red earth walls circled the land like a family holding hands. At dawn, smoke rose gently from cooking fires, and the village woke up to the sound of roosters, pestles pounding yam, and children laughing barefoot on the sand. The river was the heart of Uzoma. Women fetched water there every morning. Fishermen whispered prayers before casting their nets. Elders poured libation at its edge, speaking softly to the spirits of their ancestors. May our children grow in peace, one old man murmured, sprinkling palm wine into the water. The market sat at the center of the village, alive with color and sound. Tomatoes glowed red in woven baskets. Dried fish hung in rows. Pottery clinked gently as traders arranged their goods. Drums echoed from a nearby compound where young men practiced for the coming festival. Fresh pepper, sweet pepper, a woman called. Come and see my pots, strong and well-fired, another voice answered. Among the moving crowd walked Zara. She was 20 seasons old, tall and graceful, with calm eyes that made people feel at ease. But it was not her beauty that drew people toward her. It was the way she moved, the way she listened, the way her presence felt like rest. An old woman sat under a tree, rubbing her swollen knee. My mother, are you in pain? Zara asked gently. The spirits are testing these bones, the woman sighed. Zara knelt, crushed a few leaves in her palm, and rubbed the paste onto the knee. By tomorrow, you will walk easier, she said with a soft smile. Ah, Zara, the woman laughed. Your hands carry blessing. Nearby, children gathered as Zara began to tell a story, her voice rising and falling like song. Long ago, she said, the tortoise thought wisdom lived only in his shell. The children leaned closer, wide-eyed, laughing at the right moments. Birds seemed to pause in the trees. Listening, not far from her stood Ada. Ada was also 20, with sharp features and quick hands. Her pottery stall was neatly arranged bowls, water jars, and plates shaped with great skill. People admired her work. This pot will last for years, a woman said. Ada smiled, but her eyes drifted toward Zara. Surrounded by laughter and praise, always her, Ada thought, always the light follows her. She turned her wheel harder than necessary, the clay spinning fast beneath her palms. At home, their father, Baba Kofi, sat beneath the shade of an old Iroko tree, carving wood. His hands were steady despite his age. Villagers greeted him with respect as they passed. Elder Kofi, one man said, your daughter Zara helped my child yesterday. The fever broke before nightfall. Baba Kofi smiled proudly. She has a gentle spirit. The ancestors shaped her well. Ada stood nearby, holding a finished pot. Father, she said, look at this one. I fired it myself. He glanced at it and nodded. Good work, Ada. You are skilled. Then he looked toward Zara, laughing with the children. That girl, he said warmly, she brings peace wherever she goes. She is like calm water. Ada lowered her eyes. The words pressed into her chest like a stone. That evening, the village prepared for a small festival. Drums sounded. Women painted their arms with white chalk at the ancestral shrine. Elders lit oil lamps and spoke prayers into the night. Guide our daughters, an elder said. Keep jealousy far from our homes, another added. Zara stood quietly, head bowed in respect. Ada watched the flames flicker. The drums echoed in her chest, and somewhere deep within her, a quiet resentment continued to grow unseen, but alive. By the river, the water flowed on, reflecting the moon, carrying everything it saw, including the beginning of a story that would soon change Uzoma forever. The news moved through Uzoma like a soft wind that refused to stop. It did not arrive with drums or royal horns. It arrived in murmurs, and half-finished sentences, and widened eyes. A man returning from the elders' meeting leaned toward his wife and whispered, "The prince is coming, but not as a prince." She froze, grain spilling from her fingers. At the well, women paused mid-laughter when they heard, "Prince Almaty will hide his crown." Someone asked, "Hide it for what?" And the answer came quietly, "To see the truth." By the time the sun climbed higher, the whisper had grown heavier. People spoke it with care, as if saying it too loudly might break it. "He is young," one voice said. "He is wise," another added. "And he is tired of gold and praise," an elder concluded, shaking his head slowly. The words passed from mouth to mouth. Prince Almaty would walk like a common man. He would look with open eyes. He would choose a wife, not by beauty or wealth, but by character. That last word settled deep into the village, stirring hearts. At the market, the usual noise shifted. Traders leaned closer. "Did you hear what they said?" a woman asked while tying vegetables into bundles. "They say he will not ask whose daughter you are," another replied. "Then what will he ask?" someone wondered. An older woman laughed softly. "He will ask what lives inside you." Girls walking past slowed their steps. Some smiled nervously. Some looked down at their hands. In many homes, mothers straightened suddenly, as if remembering something important. "Bring out the loom," one said to her daughter. "Now, the girl asked. "Now," the mother replied. Cloth threads were sorted carefully. Fingers moved with new purpose. Each pattern was examined, changed, improved. "This color is too loud," one girl said. "Choose calm colors," her friend advised. "They say he watches how you move, not how you shine." In the evenings, the village no longer slept early. Drums echoed longer. Girls gathered in open spaces, practicing slow dances. Feet moved in rhythm. Arms lifted gently. "Not like that," someone corrected. "Your steps must breathe." Laughter followed mistakes, but beneath the laughter lived tension. "What if he is watching now?" one girl whispered. Another replied, "Then let him see patience." In one corner, Zara sat quietly, helping a younger girl fix her beads. She listened to the chatter without joining it. "Zara," someone asked, "will you dance too?" She smiled. "If there is time." Ada watched her from across the space. "She is not afraid," Ada thought. In another compound, a girl practiced greetings again and again. "Good evening," she said softly, then louder, then softer again. Her sister laughed. "You greet like a chief's wife already." Night after night, the village hummed with preparation. Cloth grew longer, dances grew smoother, hopes grew louder inside quiet hearts. And through it all, River Alumo flowed beside Uzoma, reflecting lantern light and listening to dreams being stitched, practiced, and whispered, knowing that the prince's choice, when it came, would shake far more than dancing feet. Ada's jealousy did not come with shouting or sudden anger. It came quietly, growing little by little, like a shadow that lengthens when the sun begins to fall. From the time she was old enough to notice the world around her, Ada noticed Zara. When Zara entered a place, people seemed to breathe easier. When Ada entered, people nodded and moved on. No one said anything cruel, but the silence spoke clearly. Ada heard it every day. One morning, as the compound woke to the sound of pestles striking yam, Ada sat shaping clay. Her fingers were strong, trained by years of work. She pressed and smoothed the pot carefully, shaping its mouth with precision. Zara walked in carrying a bundle of herbs tied with raffia. "Father," Zara said softly, "the leaves by the eastern path have grown fresh again." Baba Kofi looked up from his stool, his eyes brightening. "You remember even small things," he said. "You have a gentle heart." Ada did not look up. Her fingers slowed on the clay. "Father," she said, keeping her voice steady, "this pot will not crack." I measured the fire carefully. Baba Kofi glanced at it. Double quotes, "Yes. It is well made." Then he turned back to Zara. "Come, sit. Tell me what else you saw." Ada pressed her thumb too hard into the clay. The pot collapsed slightly. She stopped breathing for a moment, then fixed it in silence. Later that day, villagers gathered in the shade to talk. Zara passed by, greeting each person by name. "Zara," an elder called, "thank you for the story you told the children yesterday." They slept smiling. Another woman added, "She helped my mother wash clothes." Such patience. Ada stood nearby, holding two finished bowls. She cleared her throat. "My pots hold water for many days," she said. "They are strong." "Yes, yes," someone replied kindly. "You are very talented." But the circle closed again round Zara. Ada felt something tighten inside her chest. At the market, Ada arranged her pottery carefully, lining each piece with care. Zara stood a few steps away, helping an old man count cowries. The man struggled, his hands shaking. "Take your time," Zara said gently. "There is no hurry. May the spirits guide you," the man replied. People smiled. Some paused just to watch her. Ada lifted one of her pots and set it down with a dull sound. A woman glanced at her. "Ada, are you unwell?" "I am fine," Ada replied quickly. The clay is stubborn today, but her eyes did not leave Zara. That evening, the sisters sat together. Zara braided Ada's hair slowly, carefully, humming a soft tune. "You work harder than anyone," Zara said. "Your hands are gifted." Ada gave a small laugh. "You say that because you are kind." "No," Zara replied. "I say it because it is true." Ada turned her face away. "People only see you." Zara paused. "That is not what I want." Ada closed her eyes. "You would not understand." Days passed, and the feeling grew heavier. When children ran past and greeted Zara first, Ada noticed. When elders spoke Zara's name with warmth, Ada listened from a distance. When Baba Kofi spoke of peace, gentleness, and light, Ada felt the words fall between them like an invisible wall. One afternoon, Ada stood behind the house and overheard Baba Kofi speaking to a visitor. "Zara has a calming spirit," he said. "She reminds me of her mother." Ada felt her throat tighten. Her fingers curled into her palm. "And me?" she thought. "What do I remind you of?" That night, Zara placed a string of fine beads into Ada's hands. "You should wear these," she said. "They suit you." Ada looked down at them. "Why do you always give me the best?" Zara smiled. "Because you are my sister." Ada held the beads tightly. The word sister felt heavy, pressing against her chest. As drums echoed through Zoma and laughter filled the air, Ada sat quietly beside Zara, her smile practiced, her heart restless. Inside her, jealousy moved like dark water beneath a calm surface, silent, deep, and waiting. And nearby, River Olumo flowed on, watching the feeling take shape, knowing that some emotions, once fed, do not fade. The news traveled slowly at first, whispered from ear to ear, carried by the wind and the voices of those who loved to talk. It began at the market well, where women drew water and children ran between their feet. "Did you hear?" one woman said, glancing on as she filled her calabash. "The prince is coming," another whispered, her hands frozen on the rope of the well. "But not as a prince," the first woman added, leaning closer. "He will walk among us as any man would, to see the hearts of our daughters." The words landed softly, then spread quickly. By noon, the village buzzed with them. Mothers paused in the middle of pounding yam. Traders stopped, arranging tomatoes and dried fish. "He is young," an elder said to anyone who would listen, "and he is wise, weary of the pomp of gold and the empty praise of courts." Children, curious, pressed their ears against doors and listened. "He will choose by heart, not by wealth or beauty," a man told his friend, shaking his head slowly. "A good heart will guide him, nothing else." The news sank into the village like rain into soil. Every household felt it. Girls straightened suddenly in their mats, their hands trembling as they worked. Mothers gathered their daughters. "Bring out the loom," one said. "We must prepare. Weave carefully, for the prince will see who you are." "Now?" the youngest daughter asked, her eyes wide. "Yes," her mother said firmly. "Now. There is no time to waste." Threads were untangled and sorted. Red, yellow, and green fibers lay in neat rows. Fingers moved swiftly, spinning, twisting, and knotting. Every pattern was examined twice, then 3 times. Then 4. "This color is too bright," one girl said, holding up a strip. "He will notice only the calm ones." Another shook her head. "No, the pattern matters more than the color. See how it flows." Laughter echoed as mistakes were fixed. Every knot carried hope. Every weave a prayer. In open courtyards, girls gathered to practice dances, bare feet pressed against the dusty earth, turning, stepping, bending. Arms rose and fell like branches in the wind. "No, no," one corrected. "Your steps must speak of patience, not haste." "Like this?" the other asked, moving slower. "Better," her friend said, nodding. "Now remember the bow at the end. The prince watches for grace, not speed." Evening stretched longer than usual, and the drums began to echo further across the village, not just for the festival, but for practice. Girls repeated their steps again and again, correcting mistakes, murmuring songs under their breath. "What if he is here now?" one whispered, glancing nervously toward the path along the river. "Then let him see who we truly are," another replied. "Let him see our hearts." In the corner of the courtyard, Zara sat quietly, tying beads for her younger sister. "Hold this string gently," she said, "or the beads will slip." Her voice was calm and patient. "I am trying," the girl replied, fumbling. "That is all anyone can do," Zara said softly. Across the space, Ada watched. Her jaw tightened. She saw how people smiled when Zara spoke, how the elders nodded in respect, how younger girls listened with wide eyes. Always her, Ada thought. Always the light follows her. She turned quickly to her loom, twisting threads tighter than necessary, pressing harder on the wheel. "Be careful," Zara said softly, noticing the tension. The thread can break if you press too hard. Ada said nothing. She kept working. In another compound, two sisters practiced a bow and curtsy. Remember, your shoulders must stay calm, one instructed. The prince sees your heart in the way you move, her sister said, laughing softly at the seriousness of it all. The night arrived, and lanterns were lit. Smoke rose gently into the sky. The sounds of weaving and dancing lingered long after the sun had set. Even the river seemed to reflect the energy, shimmering faintly with the moonlight. River Olumo carried the stories of Uzoma with it, listening to hopes stitched into cloth. Steps practiced into the dust, dreams whispered into the night. The village slept uneasy, awake in heart, waiting for a prince who would come unseen, seeking not beauty, but the truth that lived quietly in each girl. Zara sat on the low wooden bench beneath the shade of the iroko tree, a small basket of beads resting on her lap. Each bead shimmered in the soft sunlight, red like ripe berries, white like river foam, and green like the young leaves swaying above. She picked one carefully, held it between her fingers, and turned to Ada. "Here," she said softly, offering a string of tiny red beads. "These are for you. They will look beautiful with your hair." Ada's fingers trembled as she took them. "Why do you always give me the best?" she asked quietly, forcing a smile. Zara shrugged, her face calm and warm. "Because you are my sister," she said simply. "And these remind me of the river. They are meant to bring peace to whoever wears them." Ada stared at the beads, letting them slide through her fingers. They were delicate, polished, perfect. She wanted to be grateful. She truly did, but her heart felt heavy, tangled in a bitterness she could not shake. She remembered childhood moments that had left quiet marks on her soul. She remembered the morning when they had raced to gather firewood. Zara had tripped and fallen, scraping her knee, and while she cried, Baba Kofi had carried her to the river and washed her wound himself. Ada had stumbled beside them, falling into a puddle, her arms scraped and torn, but no one had looked her way. She had learned then that attention, warmth, and praise always seemed to flow toward Zara. She remembered the festival when they were 10. Both had painted their faces, both had danced with the same care, but when the drums ceased and the elders clapped, all eyes had been on Zara. "Ah, such grace," they had said. Ada had bowed her head, cheeks burning with disappointment. And she remembered the stories their father told at night, stories of ancestors who were gentle, wise, and pure of heart. "Zara," he would say, "you carry their spirit. You are calm water in a rushing world." Ada had heard the words again and again. Never directed at her, never meant to include her, even when she begged silently to be noticed. Now, as she held the beads, those memories surfaced like stones in a river, heavy and sharp. She looked at Zara's face, bright, serene, unaware of the storm gathering inside her stepsister, and she felt both admiration and rage. Zara smiled, breaking the silence. "I also thought about the dance you were practicing this morning," she said, picking up a small white bead. "It will flow beautifully if you add this here, like the river flowing over stones. The rhythm matters as much as the steps." Ada forced herself to smile again, nodding. "Thank you," she said, her voice tight. "You always know exactly what to do." Zara laughed softly. "Not always. But I like to try. Come, let's arrange them together. You can see how the colors work with the patterns you made." Ada leaned closer, hiding her hands as she moved the beads. She saw how Zara's fingers gently placed each bead, how she suggested patterns with patience, how she praised Ada even for small adjustments. Every word, Every movement reminded Ada of all the ways Zara had always been favored. Here, Zara said, offering another string of green beads. Try this with the white ones. It will shine in the sunlight. You'll see. Ada's hands shook. She wanted to follow the suggestion. She wanted to listen and learn. But beneath her eagerness lay a simmering fire, memories of being overlooked, of always being second, of never being called heart's calm water. She thought of the morning when she had spilled water over Baba Kofi's carved stool. Zara had tripped over the same stool days later, but her father had laughed and gently helped her up. Ada had been scolded first, punished quietly, as if the world expected less from Zara than from her. She remembered the time she had fallen ill, and Baba Kofi had waited at her bedside for a moment before rushing to check on Zara, who had only a mild fever. The small injustices, repeated day after day, had grown into a heavy stone in her chest, as Zara continued arranging the beads, speaking softly about colors and patterns. Ada's thoughts grew sharper. Why does everyone love her more? Why does Father see only her heart? Why am I always in the shadow? See how it shines, Zara said, holding up the finished strand. Even from far away, the colors danced together. You could wear this tomorrow for the practice, if you like. Ada nodded, biting her lip. Yes, she said quietly, and sighed. Jealousy coiled like a snake, tight and restless. She forced her hands to move the beads, but each placement reminded her of Zara's calm, gentle nature and the admiration that followed her everywhere. Zara looked up, noticing the small hesitation in Ada's hands. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice soft. "You seem distracted." Ada's mouth curved into a smile, but her eyes were cold. "I am fine," she said. "I am just thinking." Zara smiled again, unaware of the storm. "Good," she said. "Thinking helps us create something beautiful." Ada stared at the beads, at Zara's hands, at the quiet sunlight falling over her stepsister's calm face, and the fire inside her grew. She remembered every small moment of being overlooked, every gentle word given to Zara, and never to her, every laugh, every praise. Every kindness had piled together, shaping a jealousy she could no longer ignore. She straightened, forcing herself to focus on the beads, on the patterns, on Zara's words, but the memories, the comparisons, and the longing to be favored like Zara remained, pressing in her chest like a stone that refused to sink. The river nearby flowed quietly, reflecting the morning light, as if knowing that some feelings, once grown, do not fade, and some rivalries, once kindled, wait silently for their moment to rise. Night fell over Uzoma like a soft blanket. The fireflies glimmered faintly near the riverbank, and the air smelled of damp earth and flowering herbs. Zara lay on her mat, the day's warmth still in her bones, but sleep did not come easily. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy, and the sounds of the river drifted into her mind, deep and slow, like the current carrying stories from distant lands. In the quiet darkness, her mind drifted further, into a dream. The river stretched wider than she had ever seen, reflecting the moon like silver glass. Mist rose from its surface, curling and twisting like living smoke. Then she saw her figure, half woman, half water, shimmering with scales and hair that moved like liquid, eyes deep as the river's pools. It was Mommy Water, the spirit of the river, and her voice was like the lapping of waves against stone. "Zara," the voice said, soft but clear, echoing inside her chest. "Listen carefully. Trust is a fragile boat. Not all who sail with you seek calm waters." Zara tried to speak, but her lips would not move. The water shimmered, and Mommy Water raised a hand. You will face storms you cannot see. You must be gentle, patient, and strong. Guard your heart, child, for some who smile with you will also carry shadows. The dream shifted. The river's current seemed to pull at her, yet she felt no fear. The spirit's eyes held her, knowing, measuring, warning. Remember, the voice whispered, the river sees all, and only the truth will float to the surface. Heed this, and your path will be clear. Zara woke suddenly, the words ringing in her mind. She sat up, breathing heavily, feeling both the weight and the clarity of the warning. She looked toward the river and the darkness, its waters calm now, silver under the moonlight, yet she knew what Mommy Water had meant. Not everyone who walked beside her would seek the same peace she carried in her heart. Far away, at the edge of Uzoma, Ada moved silently through a dense forest. The air was cooler here, heavy with the smell of damp leaves, moss, and something older, something that whispered in the wind. This part of the forest was forbidden, known to hide shadows that could twist wishes into mischief. Ada moved with purpose, her cloak brushing branches as she went deeper, following a path only she dared to take. She came to a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a small hut, almost hidden beneath twisting roots and hanging vines. Smoke rose from the chimney in pale, curling threads. A figure appeared at the doorway, hunched and cloaked, hands gnarled, eyes gleaming with a knowing light. Ada stopped a few steps away, her heart pounding, yet she did not falter. "I have heard you can help," Ada said, her voice steady. "I need a charm. Something special. Something that will ensure that the one I want cannot take what is not meant for her." The figure's lips curved into a slow, dark smile. "Many come with weak hearts and empty minds," the figure rasped. "Why should I help you, child?" "I am ready to give what you ask," Ada said, holding out a small bundle of fine woven cloth, carefully sewn and dyed with her own hands. "Take this, and give me what I need." The figure studied her, then took the bundle, fingers running over the weave. "Very well," the voice hissed. "I have something rare, but it is not without consequence. You must be certain of your heart." "I am," Ada said simply, her jaw set. From a small shelf inside the hut, the figure retrieved a tiny vial, filled with a clear, silvery liquid that shimmered like moonlight on the river. "This is made from the dormir flower," the figure explained. "One drop will make the drinker fall into a sleep deep enough to seem death itself, but only for a short time. Use it carefully. Do not let the river see false intentions, or the consequences will return to you." Ada took the vial, weighing it in her hands, feeling its cold smoothness. "It will work," she said quietly. The figure's smile widened. "It will work, if your heart does not waver. Remember, child, the river sees all." Ada nodded, wrapping the vial carefully in cloth and tucking it into her belt. Without another word, she turned and slipped back into the shadows of the forest, moving silently, the leaves whispering under her feet. The night seemed darker here, heavier, as if the trees themselves were watching, waiting. But Ada's mind was already planning, already shaping the next step. She would use this. She would claim what she believed was rightfully hers, and no one, no river, no spirit, no sister would stop her. Far beyond, Zara lay awake again, thinking of the dream. She did not know that in the forest, her stepsister's shadow was moving towards something dark. Something that could change everything. The river whispered softly as it flowed, carrying Mommy Water's warning into the night. "Not all who sail with you seek calm waters." Prince Almaty walked slowly along the dusty path leading into the heart of Uzoma, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low to shade his eyes, a simple cloak wrapped around his shoulders. The clatter of the market reached him first, wooden carts creaking, pots clanging, voices rising and falling like waves across the open space. He moved carefully, observing everything without calling attention to himself. Children ran past, bare feet kicking up soft dust, baskets of fruit teetering in their small hands. Women chattered while weighing tomatoes and peppers. Men haggled over fish and grains. The air smelled of dried earth, fresh vegetables, smoke from cooking fires, and something sweet. Perhaps the oil the women used to polish their pots. He paused by a stall where dried fish hung like ornaments. The old vendor squinted at him, looking for something. He asked, "I am just passing." Ahmadi replied softly, his voice calm, careful. "The sun is strong today." The vendor nodded and returned to ranging his wares. Ahmadi's eyes roamed the market. Then he noticed her. Zara was standing near the edge of the square, not at a stall, but in the center of a small crowd. Two women were arguing over a bundle of yams, voices sharp, gestures quick. Zara moved between them, her hands raised gently. "Please stop," she said. "There is enough for both. Let us divide them fairly." One woman crossed her arms, frowning. "I saw them first," she snapped. Zara smiled, her voice soft but firm. "And I will make sure each of you takes your share. No one will leave hungry." Ahmadi watched, fascinated. Her hands moved with careful precision, not force, not impatience. She spoke with a calm authority that did not demand. Yet no one dared argue further. Slowly, the women lowered their voices, their hands releasing the yams, and a quiet understanding settled over them. "Thank you," one whispered, bowing her head. "Peace is worth more than any bundle." Zara replied, tying a small cloth around the yams to mark them. "Take care, sisters." The crowd began to disperse, and Zara moved to help an elderly man rearrange his baskets of peppers. He hobbled, shaking, muttering to himself. "I cannot carry these alone," he said. Zara bent down, lifting a basket onto her hip. "I will help," she said, smiling. "We work together, do we not?" Ahmadi felt a sudden pull in his chest. He had expected beauty, perhaps grace, but not this. Not kindness made visible, not patience flowing like water from her movements, not the way she seemed to carry the respect of the market without demanding it. He glanced sideways and noticed Ada. She stood near the edge of the stalls, half hidden behind a stack of woven mats. Her hands twisted a small cloth nervously. Her eyes followed Zara with something darker: resentment, calculation, a shadow that moved beneath her face. Ahmadi observed quietly. Even her posture betrayed her, the way she shifted her weight, the subtle tightening of her jaw. Their eyes met briefly. Zara looked at him first, curious, polite, as if seeing a traveler she might greet. Ahmadi's gaze lingered, studying her calm, radiant expression, the way her eyes softened when she spoke to the elders, the way her hands moved to help without hesitation. Then, as his eyes flicked to the shadows, he saw Ada glance toward him, her gaze sharp, fleeting, suspicious, almost wary. He felt a ripple of understanding. Here was not just the gentle daughter everyone praised, but a sister with fire beneath her calm exterior. He could see the tension she carried, the quiet storm that had not yet spoken, that had yet to move, but was there. Zara returned to the elderly vendor, laughing softly at something he said, a light in her eyes that made the wrinkles on his face seem smaller. Ahmadi stepped closer, pretending to examine a basket of yams. He listened to the gentle exchange, noted every word, every gesture, every way she brought order and kindness without commanding it. Meanwhile, Ada's shadow lingered nearby, a quiet witness. She adjusted a basket of her own, forcing herself to appear busy, but Amati could see it, the tightness in her shoulders, the flicker of irritation, the flash of jealousy in her eyes whenever they followed Zara. Zara's voice carried softly across the square. "Do not worry, Baba," she said to the old vendor. "The sun will set soon, and your baskets will be safe. Let us go inside after you finish." Almaty nodded to himself, impressed by her gentle authority. She did not ask for praise. She did not seek it. It came to her naturally, as if it were part of her being. Ada stepped slightly forward, almost instinctively, then pulled back, hiding again behind the cloths. Almaty watched her, noting the subtle tension, the quiet calculating gaze. He felt the story of the two sisters unfold before him, unspoken, almost visible in the market dust and sunlight. He realized that in one glance, in one calm action, Zara revealed her heart. And in Ada's shadow, he sensed the spark of something else, a fire he would need to understand before it grew too strong. The river of the village lay not far beyond the market, flowing quietly past the houses and stalls. Its calm water reflected the sunlight, the market, and perhaps, unknowingly, the story that had just begun. Almaty turned back to Zara as she helped the elderly vendor. Their eyes met again, a brief, unspoken recognition, and for a moment, the noise of the market fell away. He was struck not by beauty alone, but by grace, patience, and something that called to him quietly, insistently. Then, as if aware of his gaze, Zara looked down to the baskets once more. Her expression serene, leaving Almaty to study the shadows where Ada lingered, her eyes sharp, calculating, restless. And the prince knew, even in that moment, that the heart of Uzoma and the story of these two sisters would not be simple to unravel. The first light of dawn crept softly across Uzoma, painting the village in pale gold and gentle pink. Mist hovered above River Olumo, curling on the reeds and the smooth stones, making the river seem wider, older, more secretive than anyone had ever seen. Birds chirped quietly, their calls cautious as if they, too, sensed something hidden in the morning air. Ada waited near the river bank, her cloak pulled tightly round her shoulders, the small vial of Dormir hidden inside. She looked at the water, its surface reflecting the first rays of the sun, and smiled faintly, a slow, measured smile that held both warmth and a hidden edge. She called softly to Zara, who was arriving just beyond the trees, carrying a small basket of offerings for the river spirits. "Zara," she said, stepping forward, "I have a tradition I wish to share with you." Zara paused, tilting her head, her dark eyes bright in the soft morning light. "A tradition?" she asked gently. "What is it?" Ada's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "It is a secret sisterhood ritual. Before a wedding, the women of our village go to the river at dawn to honor the spirits and to ensure harmony, protection, and joy for the bride. Only sisters, only trusted friends, may share it. I thought we could do it together." Zara smiled, a small, trusting smile, tilting her head again. "I would like that very much," she said. "It feels special. I have never done a ritual like that before. Will it be difficult?" "Not at all," Ada replied smoothly, hiding the slight tremor in her hands. "It is simple, but it must be done with heart. We give thanks to the river, we sing, and we offer these," she said, pointing to two small ceremonial gourds carved from the wood of the Iroko tree. Each gourd was painted with delicate patterns of white and red, symbols of the river's favor and the bond between sisters. Zara's fingers brushed Ada's as she took one of the gourds. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "I can feel the river already." Ada nodded. her expression softening, almost tender. "Yes," she said. "The river listens to those who speak with honesty. It rewards hearts that are true." She handed Zara a small bundle of flowers to scatter into the water. Delicate white blooms that floated like tiny stars. Zara's hands shook slightly as she held them, inhaling their sweet scent. The sisters walked to the edge of the river, the morning mist curling around their ankles, and the river itself seemed to sigh, as if welcoming them. Zara bent to place her flowers gently on the water's surface. "Look," she said quietly, pointing. "They float so easily, like little boats. I feel the river is happy with us." Ada knelt beside her, placing her own bundle of flowers. "Yes," she whispered. "The river sees everything, even what is hidden in the heart." Her voice was soft, melodic, convincing. Zara looked at her, trusting, as she always did. "I am glad we are together," she said. "It feels safe. Like nothing can harm us when we share the river." Ada's eyes glimmered with a shadow that no one could see, not even the morning sun. "Yes," she said, her voice gentle. "Nothing can harm us. Nothing at all." She reached into the folds of her cloak and carefully took out the small vial of dormir. The liquid shimmered like moonlight on water. She held it in her hand, staring at it for a moment, as if she were admiring a rare jewel. Then she poured it slowly into her ceremonial gourd, swirling it gently. The silver liquid mixed with the water she had already added for the ritual, invisible, silent, perfect. "Drink with me," Ada said softly, lifting her gourd to Zara. "We share the blessing together. As sisters do. The river will hear us, and it will protect us." Zara's eyes met hers. "Together," she said, lifting the gourd with both hands, smiling warmly, trusting completely, unaware of the shadow hidden in her sister's eyes, the secret weight in the gourd. Ada mirrored her movement, the tiniest flicker of satisfaction passing across her face. Almost too subtle to notice, the river's mist curled high around them, hiding what was about to happen. The water shimmered, holding the secret of the potion, the plan, the betrayal. And in that quiet moment, with dawn breaking and the birds beginning their song, the stage was set. The ritual would begin. The gourd would be lifted. The river would bear witness. And Zara, trusting as ever, would drink, not knowing that the calm waters she believed in carried a storm she could not yet see. The first light of dawn lingered on the surface of River Olumo, pale gold reflecting in the curling mist that rose like smoke from the water. Birds began their songs, soft at first, hesitant, then growing louder, as if the forest itself was waking to witness the morning. The river moved slowly, whispering against the stones, carrying the scent of damp earth, wild flowers, and the faint sweetness of early blossoms. Zara and Ada knelt at the edge of the water, the mist curling around their ankles and cloaks, making them seem almost part of the river itself. Each held a ceremonial gourd in her hands, decorated with red and white patterns that gleamed faintly in the morning light. The sisters had walked here quietly, speaking little, letting the river's presence fill the air. Zara's fingers trembled slightly as she placed her bundle of white flowers into the gourd, watching as the petals floated gently on the water. "May the river watch over us," Zara whispered, her voice soft, musical. "May it hear our hearts and bless our paths." Ada's eyes followed hers, sharp, calculating. A shadow beneath the soft morning light. She mimicked Zara's movements carefully, dipping her own flowers into the water, letting them drift in silence. Her heart raced with anticipation, excitement, and something darker, a thrill born of envy and long-nurtured resentment. "Drink with me," Ada said at last, lifting her gourd. tilting it slightly so that the liquid inside caught the sunlight. Her voice was soft, coaxing, almost sisterly, for the river, for the blessing, together, as sisters. Zara looked into her eyes, smiling, trust shining from her expression like the sun over the river. Together, she said, lifting her own gourd with both hands. She tipped the drink to her lips and drank, the cool liquid flowing smoothly, carrying with it the sweet scent of herbs that Ada had carefully mixed. She swallowed, unaware of the silver shimmer hidden inside, the dormier flower that would bend her body into a deep, enchanted sleep. For a moment, nothing happened. The river whispered. The bird song filled the air. Zara set down her gourd, her hands brushing against the soft mist, and exhaled a quiet sigh of peace. Then a sudden dizziness struck her. The world wavered. The mist seemed to move faster, curling and twisting on her, and the sunlight blurred into pale streaks. Ada, she whispered, trying to steady herself. I feel strange. Ada leaned closer, a faint smile curling at the corners of her lips, a shadow flickering over her face. It is nothing, she said softly, her tone almost soothing. The river's blessing. Sometimes it overwhelms us. Sometimes it is stronger than we expect. Zara reached out instinctively, but her arms felt heavy, as though the river itself had pulled them down. Her knees buckled. The gourd slipped from her hands and fell with a soft thud into the reeds. Her eyelids fluttered, then closed, and her body crumpled slowly, gracefully, like a flower folding in the morning dew. Ada's face hardened. The warmth, the sisterly softness she had worn moments ago, vanished completely. Her eyes, sharp and cold, glinted with a fire that had been hidden for years. She knelt beside the fallen girl, placing a hand lightly on Zara's shoulder, not to comfort, but to feel the weight of what she had done. "Oh, Zara," Ada whispered, her voice low, precise, and dangerous. "You think the world has always loved you for your kindness, your beauty, your gentle ways. But it has not. It has loved me for my cleverness, for my skill, for what I can take. And yet, every time, every single time, you have been the one to shine, to be praised, to be adored." She leaned closer, her eyes cold and piercing. "I have watched as they laughed at my efforts, as they admired your smile, as father's eyes lingered on you while mine were ignored. You, who give everything to everyone, who trusts everyone, who thinks your heart alone is enough to protect you. You are weak. And I am stronger than you ever guessed." Ada stood, lifting the gourd she had poured the potion into, her movements deliberate. "The river will carry you now," she said, voice low and chilling. "And I will rise finally, to claim what has always been mine. Your light will fade, and at last, the world will see me, as it should have all along." Zara lay still, her chest rising and falling slowly, her body limp in the early mist. The petals from her offering floated past her, drifting down the river's current, the river itself reflecting the first golden rays of dawn. Silent witness to the betrayal unfolding at its edge, Ada's eyes gleamed, a cruel satisfaction hidden beneath the gentle morning mist. The river carried their story onward, and in that quiet suspended moment it was clear. The calm waters Zara had trusted had already begun to shift, ripples spreading, carrying the first whispers of a storm she could not yet see. The river bank was silent now, the soft mist curling along the water like ghostly fingers. The morning sun, pale and golden, cast long shadows over the stones and reeds. Ada knelt beside Zara, who lay still, her body limp from the Dormir potion. The gentle rhythm of her breathing was almost comforting, yet for Ada, it was the perfect moment to strike, the culmination of years of jealousy and carefully nurtured resentment. Ada pulled the fishing net from her cloak, coarse and strong. With thick knots that glinted faintly in the dawn light, she unfolded it carefully, spreading it over Zara's fragile form. "Sleep well, sister," she whispered, her voice soft, but with an edge of steel. "The river has always favored you, but not for long." Zara's chest rose and fell slowly. The rise and fall like the small waves along the shore. Ida's hands moved with precision, wrapping the net round her stepsister's body, first her legs, then her torso, then her arms. The net pressed lightly, snug but not tight, concealing Zara completely. Ada added the final touch, several smooth, heavy stones she had collected from the river bank. Placing them carefully into the folds of the net, each stone added weight, ensuring that Zara would sink quickly once she entered the current. Ada paused, looking down at the bound figure. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, hesitation, maybe, or perhaps a trace of the sister she had once shared secrets with. Then she shook her head sharply. "No," she muttered. "This is the only way. She has always had everything. Not anymore." The reeds rustled behind her, almost imperceptibly, but Ada did not notice. She lifted the net carefully, testing the weight. The stones pressed against Zara's form, making the bundle heavy in her arms. Step by slow step, Ada moved closer to the river's edge, the water swirling on rocks, moving faster than it seemed at first glance. A current that could carry her secret away. "Almost there," she whispered, her breath cold in the morning air. "Almost everything is mine now." Then she lowered the net into the water, the surface rippling around it. For a brief moment, the stones held Zara just beneath the edge, the current tugging at the net, teasing, pulling slightly. Ada leaned forward, gripping the net tightly with both hands. "Sleep forever, Zara," she said, almost smiling, her voice low and trembling with triumph. She pushed, slowly at first, then with more force. The current seized the net immediately, carrying it into the deeper water with a rush and a roar. The bundle plunged beneath the surface, the stones pulling it down, 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 into the river's swift embrace. Mist and spray rose on Ada as she stepped back, watching the river swallow her sister. But the river, and the morning, held secrets Ada did not know. From the thick reeds along the bank, eyes watched silently. Prince Almaty had suspected something earlier. Subtle hints in Ada's behavior, in the way she lingered at the edges, in the glimmer of calculation that passed across her eyes when she thought no one was looking. He had followed, quietly, to loyal gods hidden in the reeds beside him, their bodies pressed against the earth, eyes trained on every movement. The prince's breath was steady, his heart pounding quietly in his chest. He saw the net slip into the water, the bundle disappear beneath the surface, and he did not move too soon, for he needed to be certain of the moment, for timing would be everything. One of the guards, a tall man with strong shoulders, whispered, "Shall we dive, my lord?" Almaty shook his head slightly, motioning for patience. "Wait," he said softly. "Watch her. Let her believe she has succeeded. We cannot fail now. We must act swiftly, but wisely." Ada's triumphant glance over her shoulder, scanning the riverbank as if to confirm her victory, passed directly over the hidden figures in the reeds. She did not see the prince's keen eyes, the soldiers' tense readiness. She did not know that the calm waters she had trusted to hide her deed were already being watched, that the river itself had a witness, one who would not allow her envy to go unchallenged. As the current carried Zara further downstream, swirling and pulling at the net, Ada stood at the edge, breathing heavily, her chest rising with triumph and anticipation. "Now," she whispered into the morning mist, The world will finally see me. Now finally, I will rise. And beneath the surface the river's depths held Zara fragile yet alive while hidden among the reeds. The prince and his guards readied themselves, their eyes fixed, their hearts steady, waiting for the precise moment to strike and change everything. The river roared softly, carrying Zara's unconscious form farther downstream. The mist clung to the surface like a ghostly veil, curling on stones and reeds, hiding everything from the eyes of the village. The morning light flickered through the mist in pale gold streaks, illuminating the water's surface and making it shimmer as if alive. Prince Almaty crouched low in the reeds, his cloak brushing the wet earth, his eyes never leaving the net that held Zara. The two guards beside him, their bodies pressed against the ground, held their breaths, tense and ready. Almaty's voice was barely a whisper, carried only to those who had been trained to listen. Now, he said softly, raising his hand and curling his fingers into the signal they had practiced. The guards nodded imperceptibly, muscles taut like coiled springs. Steady, Almaty whispered. Move with the river, not against it. She is fragile, but alive. Bring her safely. The two men slipped silently into the water, the current lapping against their bodies as they dove. The river, swift and cold, tugged at them immediately, yet they moved with practiced ease, strong arms cutting through the water, steady breath held beneath the surface. Each stroke brought them closer to the heavy net, the stones pulling it downward. They reached Zara and immediately assessed her, lifting the net slightly to ease the weight of the stones and sliding their hands underneath her small frame. She is heavier than I expected. One guard murmured, careful not to startle her, his voice muffled by the water. Keep moving, the other replied, gripping her shoulders firmly. The prince waits upstream. Slowly, carefully, they guided her through the swift current, using the momentum of the river to help carry her without letting the net twist or trap her. The stones shifted, clinking softly against each other, but the guards managed to hold her steady, each movement precise and silent. The water was icy against their skin, but they did not falter. Every second mattered. Every heartbeat counted. Meanwhile, on the riverbank, Ada knelt beside the edge where the net had first entered the water. She watched the ripples, the mist, the smooth currents, and whispered to herself, her voice trembling slightly but full of conviction. Now, the prince will see only me, she murmured, her eyes glinting with triumph. He will see my grief, my sorrow, and I will rise above her. Her hands dug into the soft earth as she imagined Zara gone forever, her body swallowed by the river's depths. Ada had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, and now it seemed to unfold exactly as she had wished. The river, she believed, had taken Zara, and the world would finally see her as the clever, strong, deserving sister. Unseen by Ada, the prince remained hidden among the reeds, his cloak blending with the morning mist. His eyes never left her, studying her movements, listening to her soft murmurs. He noted the tightening of her jaw, the slight tremble in her hands, the way her chest rose and fell too quickly for calm sorrow. He waited. Patience was necessary now. Timing would reveal everything. Far upstream, the guards finally broke the surface of the water, their breaths quick but controlled. They carried Zara between them, moving silently along the river bank toward a narrow, hidden cave the prince had scouted days before. The mouth of the cave was shadowed by hanging vines, the stones slick with river spray. They eased her onto the smooth floor of the cave, removing the heavy stones and lifting the net from around her. Zara's chest rose and fell slowly, shallow but steady. Her dark hair clung to her face, damp from the river, her robes wet and heavy, but she was alive. The prince emerged carefully from the reeds, stepping lightly over stones and roots to reach the cave entrance. He looked back toward Ada, kneeling by the river, whispering to the water, and allowed himself a quiet exhale. She believed she had succeeded, and in her pride and jealousy, she was already unraveling her own story. The river itself seemed to hum around him, carrying the tension, the betrayal, and the promise of justice yet to come. Ada's whispered words, soft and full of certainty, echoed faintly in the morning mist. Now, the prince will see only me. But the prince knew better. He had seen everything. The river had witnessed the truth, and the moment for the next move, the rescue, and the reckoning, had arrived. The sun had risen higher now, its pale light breaking through the morning mist, scattering across the village of Azoma like spilled gold. The streets, usually alive with the laughter of children and the chatter of traders, were strangely quiet. A few women moved silently from house to house, whispering, glancing toward the river, as if something invisible had passed through the village and stolen the air itself. Ada walked slowly along the main path, her steps uneven and soft, as if she carried the weight of grief upon her shoulders. Her cloak was drawn close, damp from the morning mist, and her eyes were red from tears she had carefully shed in hiding. Her hands trembled slightly, and she lifted them to her face, as though she could not bear to look at the world after what had happened. "Oh, my sister, my poor, sweet sister," she whispered to herself, voice quivering. When the villagers spotted her emerging from the edge of the river path, they paused. Mothers clutched their children closer, market vendors froze mid-sentence, and even the elders, who were usually composed and steady, leaned forward to watch. "Ada." "What has happened?" called one of the women, her voice sharp with alarm and worry. Ada fell to her knees on the soft earth, hands pressed to the ground as if the river itself had drawn her to submission. It has taken her," she sobbed, her voice breaking. A carefully crafted wail. "The river spirit, Mommy Water. She has taken my sister. My dear Zara. She floated away into the current, and I could not save her." Gasps spread through the crowd. One woman pressed her hands to her mouth, stifling a cry. "Taken by the river, oh gods. What can be done?" Baba Kofi emerged from his workshop, his tools still in his hands, his apron dusted with shavings of wood. He had heard whispers, the rumors moving faster than the river itself. When he saw Ada kneeling, weeping openly, he ran to her side. His face, usually calm and gentle, was now etched with shock and fear. "Ada, speak clearly. What has happened to my daughter, my Zara? Tell me the truth." Ada threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. "Father, the river, it came in the night. I tried, but it was too strong. Zara, she is gone, taken by Mommy Water herself. Only the spirits know where she rests." Baba Kofi's hands shook as he held his stepdaughter, searching her face for any hint of deceit. "Gone, gone, my heart cannot bear this." He sank to his knees, leaning on Ada for support, tears coursing down his cheeks. "My gentle child, my heart's calm water, how could this happen?" The villagers gathered round, forming a wide circle, whispering among themselves. "The river spirit takes those who are pure," one elder murmured. "Perhaps she was too blessed, too kind. Perhaps she belongs to the spirits now, too blessed, too kind," another woman said sharply. "But how can the spirits take a girl who was loved by all, her father, her village? She is ours." Ada pressed herself closer to Baba Kofi, her tears flowing freely now, every movement calculated to evoke pity. I tried to save her, father. I called out to the river, begged it to return her. But it is strong, stronger than we are. She is gone. Only the spirits can hold her now. Baba Kofi collapsed to the ground, burying his face in his hands. The villagers began wailing softly, the sound of grief spreading through Zoma like a heavy fog. Children cried quietly at their mothers' sides. Even the elders, who had seen many hardships, shook their heads in sorrow. The market stalls were abandoned, baskets of fruit left to rot. And the day felt as if it had been stolen alongside Zara. From the edge of the crowd, a figure approached carefully, moving with quiet authority but without drawing attention. Prince Almaty, still in his simple disguise of a traveler's cloak and wide-brimmed hat, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and observing, swept over the scene: the kneeling Ada, the grief-stricken Baba Kofi, the murmuring villagers. He did not speak immediately, allowing the scene to unfold, taking in every gesture, every hesitation, every flicker of movement. He finally spoke softly, kneeling beside Baba Kofi. "Father Kofi," he said gently, placing a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder, "do not despair. Perhaps this is not the end. Perhaps the river has only taken your daughter for a short time, to test your hearts and reveal truths hidden beneath the surface." Baba Kofi looked up through tear-streaked fingers, his eyes red and wide. "A test? Oh, traveler, I do not know if my heart can endure tests of this kind. My Zara, my child, my heart's calm water, gone." Prince Almaty's gaze shifted subtly to Ada, still kneeling, her eyes wet and pleading, her body leaning against her father. He studied her carefully, noting the precision in her gestures. The way she met his eyes briefly and quickly looked away. The way her fingers trembled just slightly, not from sorrow, he realized, but from anticipation. He lowered his voice, so only the gods hidden behind the nearby huts could hear. "Watch her carefully," he murmured. "Patience is our ally. The truth reveals itself in time." Ada's cries continued, rising and falling with perfect timing, her voice convincing enough to sway the villagers completely. Yet the prince, though appearing gentle and consoling, had already seen the hints of her shadow, the currents of envy that had flowed beneath her calm surface. He stayed, silent and watchful, letting the village mourn, letting her believe her plan had succeeded. And as the morning stretched into midday, the river flowing quietly beyond the reeds, the prince observed. Every shiver of Ada's hand, every small glance, every carefully measured sob was noted, stored, remembered. He would wait. The river had carried Zara safely, hidden from all eyes. And now the web of deception would begin to unravel. The cave was cool and damp, the scent of moss and river water thick in the air. Light filtered through cracks in the rocks, casting jagged, golden beams that danced across the wet walls. The sound of the river rushing outside echoed faintly, a distant reminder of the danger that had nearly claimed her life. Zara lay on a bed of soft ferns and blankets, her dark hair damp and matted against her pale face. Her chest rose slowly, each breath shallow but steady. The healer, a quiet woman with eyes like polished amber and hands steady as stone, moved around her with deliberate care. "Breathe, child," she murmured, dipping a small cloth into cool river water and gently wiping Zara's face. "You have been given a second chance. The river has spared you, but your spirit must awaken fully." Zara stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. A whisper of air. Where am I? You are safe," the healer replied softly, brushing a lock of wet hair from Zara's forehead. "The river's current carried you to this cave. You were drugged, yes, but you live. That is what matters now. The rest can be faced when your strength returns." Zara blinked, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes. Ada, her voice caught in her throat. Barely audible. She did this to me. The healer's gaze was steady, full of quiet understanding. Yes, child. Your sister betrayed your trust. She wished to harm you, but she did not succeed. You were protected, though few know it. The prince himself ensured your rescue. He and his gods were nearby when the river claimed you. Ready to intervene, Zara's mind spun. The truth settled down her like cold stones. Her hands twitched, clutching at the blankets. The prince, he watched, he knew. Her voice trembled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. He saved me, the healer nodded. He did. But you must rest before you move, before you speak. Strength will guide you. And clarity will follow. Zara lay back for a moment, closing her eyes. Memories flooded her mind, the trust she had placed in Ada, the ritual, the gourd, the cold water pulling her down. Her chest ached with betrayal, yet somewhere beneath it, a small, stubborn ember of love for her stepsister remained. She had always loved Ada, shared with her, cared for her, even when jealousy had shown in fleeting glances and quiet words. And now, that love collided violently with the truth. Zara, the healer said gently, you are strong. You have survived the river and the darkness, in the heart of someone close. You will need to face Ada, yes. But do not rush into anger. The prince has a plan, one that will reveal her heart not only to you, but to the village, to your father, and to all who watched. Zara's eyes opened slowly, focused and steady, a fire beginning to glow behind them. A plan, she whispered. Tell me. The healer lowered her voice, leaning closer. The prince wishes to let Ada believe she has succeeded for now. He wants her arrogance, her pride, her deception to be fully exposed at the right time, when the truth cannot be hidden. He has seen her heart, Zara. He has watched every motion, every word, every subtle flicker of envy. And when the time comes, the river's witness will be joined by yours, by the prince's, and by all who have eyes to see. Zara's fingers flexed her on the edge of the blanket. So, I do not act alone. I wait, but I will confront her. I cannot let this lie linger forever. Her voice, weak at first, grew stronger with every word. I will face Ada, but not with hatred. With truth. With the river itself as witness. The healer nodded approvingly. Yes. Your heart is pure, Zara. You will show her that trust and love are stronger than envy and deceit. The river has given you a second chance, not for revenge, but for justice done rightly. You will stand not only for yourself, but for all who depend on truth. Zara's eyes softened for a brief moment, thinking of her father, Baba Kofi, and the village she loved. I cannot let father suffer more, she whispered. He believes she is my only protector now, that I am gone. But he deserves to see the truth too. Then you will, the healer said quietly. But rest now. Let the river's blessing flow through you. Strengthen your body. Strengthen your spirit. When you rise, Ada's heart will be revealed to all. And the river, always the river, will bear witness. Zara exhaled, a slow, shuddering breath, and closed her eyes once more. A faint smile touched her lips, not for victory, not yet, but for the knowledge that she was alive, that she had survived, and that the truth, when it came, would be as unstoppable as the river itself. And beyond the cave, beyond the reeds, the sun rose higher over River Olumo, glinting off the water. The current carrying with it the promise of revelation, of justice, and of the reckoning that would soon come for Ada. By mid-morning, the village of Uzoma was alive once more. though the air carried a tension that had not been felt in many seasons. Market stalls were busy again, children's laughter returned. But it was quieter, hesitant, as if everyone still held their breath. Remembering the shadow of Zara's disappearance, word had spread that a traveler had come to console Baba Kofi, though no one yet knew his true identity. The square was crowded when the prince, still dressed in the simple cloak of a traveler, stepped forward in front of the villagers and Baba Kofi. The sunlight glinted off the edges of the river nearby, and the water's gentle whisper seemed to underscore the moment. "People of Uzoma," he began, his voice carrying clearly over the murmuring crowd. "I have walked among you, listened to your stories, and seen the hearts of your daughters. And now, I wish to reveal myself, not as a stranger, but as Prince Almighty of our kingdom." Gasps rose from the villagers, mothers clutched their children, and the elders leaned forward, mouths open in disbelief. Baba Kofi stumbled slightly, his hands gripping the edge of a wooden railing. "The prince, here," he whispered, eyes wide and uncomprehending. Prince Almighty inclined his head gracefully. "It is true, I have come in disguise to seek a bride not for beauty alone, nor for wealth, nor for pomp, but for the heart, for courage, for kindness, and for wisdom. I will choose my bride in 3 days' time, during the Festival of Masks. There, each candidate will present herself, and the truth of her heart will be revealed to all." A hush fell over the crowd. The name of the festival carried weight. Masks were worn to hide secrets. Yet they were also the tradition by which truth could not remain hidden. The villagers exchanged glances, whispering among themselves, curiosity and anticipation buzzing like the wings of insects over the river. Ida's heart leapt. She straightened her posture, smoothing her cloak and lifting her chin. This was her chance. After years of being overshadowed, overlooked, and compared to Zara, now the eyes of the prince, the elders, and the entire village would fall upon her. She could not fail. She allowed herself a small, confident smile and turned to Baba Kofi. Kneeling before him briefly, "Father," she said softly, "do not fear, I will represent our family well. I will honor Zara's memory, and I will bring pride to our home." Baba Kofi's eyes, though sorrowful, softened slightly. "Ada, be careful, my child. The river has a way of revealing more than we see. Remember this." Ada's eyes flickered for just a moment, betraying a hint of hesitation, but she quickly masked it with pride. "I will not fail you, father. You will see. I will rise." Over the next hours, whispers began to spread through Zoma. Some mothers spoke quietly to one another. "Did you see how Ada's eyes lingered on the river earlier? There is something she knows. She moves too carefully," one elder said, arms crossed. "Her sorrow feels measured, almost too perfect. I do not trust her grief entirely. There is more than she is telling." Children playing nearby stopped and looked toward Ada, sensing the tension that adults felt but could not name. Even in their laughter, a shadow lingered, an unease that the festival might uncover secrets they could not yet imagine. Ada, meanwhile, retreated to her small home to begin her preparations. She examined her clothes, adjusting colors and patterns, ensuring every bead, every thread, every fold of cloth was perfect. 3 days, she whispered to herself, 3 days. And all will see what I have always known. I am the one who should be chosen, not her. Yet even as she whispered, the faintest chill brushed her spine. A whisper in her mind, a memory of the river, a fleeting image of Zara's gentle face, but she pushed it aside. Focusing on the festival, on her own plan, on the admiration she intended to command. Meanwhile, from a distance, Prince Almaty watched, still in partial disguise, his eyes sharp and observant. He noted every movement, every expression, every small gesture, the whispers, the small suspicions of the villagers. They would all serve their purpose. The festival would reveal truth, as the river had already shown him. And Ada's carefully constructed mask would finally begin to crack. And so, the stage was set. The festival of masks was only 3 days away. Ada, confident and determined, prepared to present herself, while Zara, hidden and healing, waited for the right moment to return. And the village, unaware of the full story, whispered and watched. The river flowing quietly beside them, holding the secret of what had truly occurred in its depths. The village square was transformed, almost unrecognizable beneath the brilliant chaos of the festival of masks. Colorful fabrics fluttered in the morning breeze. Masks of carved wood and painted clay gleamed under the sun, and ribbons of red, gold, and green twisted through the hair of villagers and dancers alike. Children scampered among the stalls, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic beats of drums and the sweet melody of flutes. Smoke spiraled from ceremonial fires, carrying the scent of roasted yam and the herbal incense used to honor the ancestors. Every eye in Uzoma was fixed on the central platform, where the prince, now in royal garb, but still maintaining an air of calm authority, stood tall. The light caught the jewels sewn into his robes, reflecting in tiny prisms that danced across the faces of the crowd. His voice rose above the music, clear and commanding. People of Uzoma, he began, today is not only a festival of celebration, but a festival of truth. The river has spoken, the elders have guided, and the spirits watch. And now, it is time to reveal the hearts of those who would become my bride. Gasps spread through the villagers. Whispers rose like ripples across a pond. The prince will test them, a mother murmured. But how can anyone hide what is true? Prince Almaty gestured toward a large, ornately carved gourd, polished until it gleamed like the river at dawn. This is the truth gourd, he announced. Each bride candidate shall drink from it and answer one question, posed to uncover the honesty of her heart. The question will be about sisterhood, about love, loyalty, and truth. For only through truth can a bride be chosen wisely. The candidates, young women from across the village and surrounding lands, stepped forward slowly. Masks hiding their faces, but not their tension. Their hands trembled slightly as they approached the gourd, eyes flicking toward the prince, toward the crowd, and toward one another. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of incense and sweat blending into a tangible tension that pressed on everyone like the weight of the river itself. Ada stepped forward confidently, her mask painted in cool tones, the carved edges sharp and angular to reflect strength and cunning. She moved with grace, each step measured, as if she were walking through a dream of her own design. In her heart, she repeated the story she had practiced in secret for days, the lie she would tell, the deceit she would weave. I will win, she whispered under her breath, the words almost lost beneath the beating drums. I will be chosen. All will see only what I allow them to see. The prince watched, calm and steady, his eyes narrowing just slightly. He noted the rhythm of her breathing, the subtle flicker of hesitation as she approached the gourd, the way her fingers lingered over the carved rim before finally lifting it to her lips. Ada drank. The liquid cool and smooth, sliding down her throat like water in a hidden stream. She closed her eyes briefly, composing herself, crafting her answer in the moment, her mind calculating each word for maximum effect. When she spoke, her voice was soft, controlled, and melodious, carrying over the hushed crowd. I love my sister, she said, I have always loved her. She is my heart, my family, and I would give anything for her happiness." The villagers leaned forward, listening intently. Some nodded, murmuring approval. Yet a few elders exchanged glances, their eyes sharp, searching for subtle cracks in the mask of words. Something in Ada's posture, and the small, deliberate pause before she spoke, caused the seasoned elders to frown. "Her sorrow, it feels measured," one whispered. "There is intent here that is not natural grief. She is hiding something." The prince, standing tall and unmoving, allowed the moment to linger. Every movement, every breath, every heartbeat of the audience was part of the test. Ada, unaware of how closely she was being observed, straightened her shoulders, a faint triumphant smile brushing the edges of her lips. She believed she had mastered the deception, that her carefully crafted words had masked the truth completely. Yet beneath the mask, beneath the calm veneer, a ripple of tension passed through her, a subtle tremor of fear that only the prince could see. A flicker that suggested the river, the spirits and destiny itself were watching, waiting and preparing to reveal what lay beneath the carefully constructed layers of envy and cunning. And so the crowd held its breath, the drums slowed, and the festival's vibrant colors seemed to fade slightly, and the weight of the moment, the truth. God had been drunk, words had been spoken, and yet the river, the prince, and the unseen watchers knew, deception, no matter how elegantly cloaked, is fragile in the light of truth. The drumbeat shifted suddenly, a deeper rhythm that seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. The air grew heavier, charged with anticipation. The villagers' chatter faltered, replaced by a tense hush, broken only by the soft whisper of the wind and the distant murmur of the river. Something had changed. Everyone could feel it, though none yet knew what. From behind the ceremonial screen, movement began. A figure stepped forward, her form draped in flowing white robes that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The mask she carried was plain, elegant, and tucked aside, her face fully visible. Serene yet commanding, her hair was damp from the morning mist, looser on her shoulders, and her eyes, bright and unyielding, scanned the crowd with a calm authority that drew every gaze like a magnet. Vera, alive, her presence seemed to make the colors of the festival sharper, the masks more vivid, the river's waters glint brighter. The villagers froze, mouths slightly agape, eyes wide. Children stopped mid-step, mothers clutched their shawls, and the elders leaned forward, some whispering prayers of disbelief. Gasps rippled through the square like waves across the river. It is her," one woman cried. "Zara, alive by the spirits, she lives." Ada, standing before the truth god with the crowd all her own, stiffened, her face, hidden partially by her mask, went pale. Her fingers clenched the edges of her cloak so tightly that the beads on her sleeves rattled softly. She had believed, truly believed, that the river had claimed her stepsister, that her plan had succeeded perfectly, and now, confronted by the impossible, she froze. Terror glimmered in her eyes. For the first time, her carefully constructed composure cracked. Zara stepped fully into view, her feet silent on the wooden platform, robes flowing like water cascading down a cliff. Her gaze swept the assembly, landing finally on Ada. She did not shout. She did not accuse. She did not tremble with anger. She simply looked, and in that look, Ada felt the weight of truth, of love betrayed, of a life almost lost. Zara's voice rose, calm and steady, carrying over the quiet of the crowd. "People of Uzoma," she said, her tone gentle yet unwavering, "do not let the beauty of masks hide the deeds of the heart. I was taken by the river, drugged by those I trusted. My stepsister, Ada, delivered me into its current. Yet I was spared, saved by courage, by vigilance, and by those who watched when I could not see. I am here now, alive, and no harm has come to me that cannot be faced with truth. The villagers murmured, some crossing themselves, others stepping closer to see for themselves. Baba Kofi's hands flew to his mouth, tears welling as he stared at the daughter he had feared lost forever. Zara, my child, my heart, alive, he whispered, trembling. Ada's knees felt weak beneath her. Her mask, once a shield, now seemed a trap. The carefully woven lies she had planned, the sorrow she had performed, the triumph she had imagined, everything collapsed in an instant. She tried to speak, to summon a word of denial, of explanation, but none came, only a shallow, trembling breath escaped her lips, betraying the fear she had hidden so long. Zara continued, her tone even, her words deliberate, carrying neither anger nor hatred. I speak not with malice, nor do I seek vengeance. I share the truth, so that all may see. Jealousy is a shadow that grows only when the light of love is hidden. The river witnesses all, and the truth, once revealed, cannot be denied. The drumbeats, still low and resonant, seemed to echo her words, a solemn accompaniment to the revelation. The crowd leaned forward, collectively holding its breath, absorbing the weight of what had been done, what had been hidden, and what had finally been brought to light. Ada's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for some way to reclaim her control, but there was none. The power of Zara's calm authority, the undeniable truth of her survival, and the weight of the assembled villagers pressed upon her like the river's own current. And she felt herself being carried into a tide she could not fight. And all the while, Zara stood in white, alive and unshaken, a living testament to resilience, to mercy, and to the inevitability of truth. The silence that had fallen over the festival of masks was suffocating, heavy as the humid air that clung to Uzoma. The villagers could hardly breathe, each one frozen in the moment as Zara's calm, unwavering presence filled the square. Ada's mask, once a shield of pride and confidence, now felt like a prison. Her hands trembled, beads rattling softly as she clutched the edges of her cloak. Her eyes, wide with terror, darted to every face, seeking pity, seeking escape, finding none. She sank to her knees, the wooden platform beneath her unyielding. Yet the weight she bore felt far greater than mere gravity. Her chest heaved as sobs tore themselves from her throat, loud and raw, echoing across the silent crowd. I was jealous, she cried, voice cracking. I was jealous of her. I wanted to be seen, to be loved, to be chosen. And I thought, if she were gone, then it would be mine. Her words spilled out in a torrent, faster and faster. Shaking her body, I gave her that drink. I wrapped her in the net. I pushed her into the river. Oh spirits, forgive me. I thought I could take what should have been mine. But she survived. She always survives, and now I am left with nothing but my shame. The villagers gasped, covering their mouths, some falling to their knees themselves in astonishment. Baba Kofi's face was ashen, his hands trembling, and yet he remained silent, watching, torn between heartbreak and a father's instinct to protect. Prince Almaty stepped forward, his expression calm but resolute, his eyes fixed on Ada. The drums in the square began a solemn rhythm, slow and deep, like the heartbeat of the river itself. Ada, he said, voice carrying over the trembling crowd, your deceit and envy have been revealed. You have confessed your deeds. Now, as tradition dictates, your fate must be decided by the river spirit, Mami Water. The river judges all, and it is not for us to deliver its wrath or mercy without its witness. Ada's sobs grew louder, tears streaming down her cheeks, washing away the makeup and the mask she had so carefully worn. "Please, please, I beg you," she cried. "I do not ask for wealth, nor for comfort, nor for praise. I only wish to be forgiven. Spare me the river's wrath. Let me live." The villagers, the elders, and even the prince fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing on them like the thick mist over the Alamo. Slowly, the elders stepped forward, ceremonial staffs in hand, chanting softly in the old tongue, their voices weaving through the air like threads of wind and water. They guided Ada to the river bank, where the current swirled gently, sparkling in the sunlight, carrying with it the whispers of the ancestors and the unseen power of Mommy Water herself. The river began to rise, as if in acknowledgement of the ritual, curling around the riverbank in small, deliberate waves. The water shimmered, alive, reflecting the faces of the gathered villagers, and the weight of justice settled upon Ada's shoulders like a stone. One elder spoke clearly, his voice resonant and solemn. "Child of Uzoma, the river sees all. It offers judgment, tempered with mercy. You have been given life, yet your heart has strayed. You must choose, exile to a distant land to serve and redeem yourself, learning to heal instead of harm, or face the river's full wrath, as it claims the proud and the deceitful." Ada's gaze fell to the water, its surface calm yet full of unspoken power. She saw in it the reflection of Zara, the village, her father's heartbreak, and the enormity of her own actions. Her knees quaked. She trembled so violently that it seemed she might fall into the river before making her choice. The silence stretched, the villagers holding their breath, waiting for her answer, waiting for destiny itself to be named. Finally, with a sob that shook her very being, Ada lifted her face, wet with tears, eyes clear now despite the fear. "Exile," she whispered, voice raw and trembling. "I will leave. I will go to a distant land. I will serve, I will learn. I will redeem myself." The elders nodded, chanting softly as they guided her away from the river's edge, marking her path into exile. The river's waters receded gently, returning to their quiet flow, as if acknowledging her choice, as if granting her a fragment of mercy for the humility she had finally embraced. Ada's shoulders sagged, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her, yet within her a fragile spark of understanding flickered. She would live, but not as she had imagined. She would live to serve, to heal, and perhaps, one day, to atone for the darkness she had allowed to take root in her heart. The villagers watched in silence, awe and sorrow mingling in their hearts. The prince stood beside Zara, who remained calm and radiant, a living testament to resilience and forgiveness. And the river flowed on, eternal and impartial, carrying with it the story of jealousy, betrayal, mercy, and the choices that define the course of a life. The sun hung low over the village of Uzoma, casting a golden glow that turned the river's surface to liquid fire. The village square was alive with music, drums echoing the heartbeat of the land, flutes weaving sweet melodies through the air, and the scent of roasting yams and fragrant herbs drifting on the breeze. Colorful fabrics fluttered in every direction, villagers laughing and dancing, elders nodding with solemn approval, and children spinning in circles, their masks bright and gleaming. Prince Almaty stood before Zara, no longer in disguise. His robes rich with gold and deep blue embroidery, jewels sparkling faintly in the sunlight. But it was not his attire nor his crown that commanded attention, it was the steady calm authority, in his eyes the warmth and respect, in his voice the way he looked at Zara as if he had seen her soul itself. "Zara," he said, bowing slightly, his hands reaching for hers. "I do not ask for your hand for your beauty alone. though it is radiant. Nor for wealth, nor for appearances. I ask for you because of your unwavering kindness, your strength, your courage, and the purity of your heart. You have faced betrayal and survived it with grace. You have loved. Even when love was returned with envy, you have shown forgiveness where most would have sought revenge. Will you be my bride, and share your life with me, not as a token of beauty, but as the partner I have sought for so long? Zara's heart swelled. Tears blurred her vision, but she smiled, a gentle, unbroken smile that reached the depths of her eyes. She looked around at the villagers, at her father, at the people who had whispered prayers for her safety, and then at Ada, far off but alive, having chosen the path of redemption. Her voice, steady and full of warmth, rose above the music. Yes, Prince Almaty, I will marry you, not for wealth, not for pomp, but for love, and for the life we will build together. A cheer rose from the villagers, a cascade of joy that mingled with the drumbeats and the laughter of children. The wedding celebration unfolded in a seamless blend of royal pageantry and traditional Uzoma customs. The elders blessed the couple, sprinkling herbs into the air and chanting in the old tongue. Villagers presented gift-woven mats, carved beads, fresh fruits, and flowers from the river bank. Dancers spun, drums thundered, and singers raised their voices in songs that had been sung for generations. And in the midst of the celebration, Zara made her choice, the ultimate mark of her character. She stood, raising her hand gently toward the crowd. And I ask, she said, voice strong yet gentle, that my stepsister, Ada, be spared. Let her live, let her learn, and let her find redemption. She is no longer my enemy, but a child of this village, as we all are, deserving of a chance to heal. The crowd murmured, and respect mingling in the whispers. Prince Almaty smiled faintly, pride and love shining in his eyes. Your heart is as luminous as the river itself, Zara, he said softly. As evening descended, the couple walked together to the banks of River Olumo. The waters shimmered in the fading light, gentle ripples reflecting the colors of the sky, carrying the songs and laughter of the villagers far downstream. They knelt together, placing small offerings, flowers, beads, and grains upon the water. The river lapped gently against their hands, as if accepting the gifts. A soft, ethereal voice rose from the current, barely audible yet unmistakable, like a whisper caught on the wind and the water at once. True beauty flows from the heart, and calm waters always find their way home. Zara and Prince Almaty looked at each other, their hands entwined, hearts full, knowing the river had borne witness not only to the trials and betrayals but to love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings. Behind them, the village continued to celebrate, the drums fading into the night as stars appeared over Uzoma, and the river flowed on, eternal, carrying the story of two sisters, a prince, and the enduring strength of a kind heart.